How is everyone? Enjoying Cannes? Okay, it's about to get better. We're here today to talk about something that's very passionate to me, but also passionate to brands in the world today. So we're here to talk about creative storytelling at speed. We live in a world now where culture moves at the speed of a scroll. So the best brands are ones that don't just resonate, but also respond. We're going to spend some time this morning talking about how we can elevate creative processes, understand how personalization that can be driven by technology can make a difference to brands and also to people in the way they engage with stories. So my friends tell me I have a face for radio, so it's quite nice for me to be here in person. We've got some really exciting people here with us, so I'm going to introduce them. So I'm going to start with Farah Koba. She's the VP of Storyworks at BBC. Next to her, there we go, got you. Next to her, we have Dave Jorgensen, who's a senior video editor at the Washington Post. Loving these round of applauses. We've got Sabrina Kalori, who's a chief marketing officer from Chief. And finally, by no means last, we've got Sam Kim, who's a manager from the Inocean Hyundai team. And before we kick into what we're going to talk about, I want to, some of you might have seen something sitting in front of us here. Sam and the team are really excited to have won a Gold Lion for the entertainment media category. So can we all have a round of applause for that?
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Thank you very much. I have my fellow teammates down there. Hi. Yes, we've made it. We have this Grand Prix award right there in the entertainment field. Thank you, everyone, for being here. And that's my head of group video calling me right there. I just wanted to say big hi right there.
Okay, so we've got people dialing in virtually via FaceTime. That's brilliant. I knew this was going to be good. Okay, well, we're going to kick straight into it. So I've prepared some potentially challenging questions to work our panelists out a bit. So I'm going to start with the first one, and that is, do you think that the established methods of storytelling still apply in a world where brands need to focus on speed and attention? I'm going to ask David to answer this one first.
Well, I guess it depends on what you would say the established methods of storytelling are. But I would say, even so, when we started off with the TikTok account in 2019, it was like 20-second videos tops. Because our rep at TikTok was like, if they're over 19 seconds, no one will see them. And now they're like, they should be over a minute. But the common thread for us, there's two. One thing is humor, but the second is every video, even if it was 19 seconds, had a beginning, middle, and end. There's always, it always starts with something, there's always a journey, and always gets somewhere else. And I do think as far as those established methods of storytelling, just trying to tell you something, even if it's in a really short amount of time, makes it very satisfying. And of course, it loops, so people watch it over and over again. But I think even with the really short vertical video, we're still seeing a lot of what you would call storytelling, established methods of storytelling.
And just to build on that, David, before I ask the rest of the panelists, so you mentioned TikTok.
Yep.
Is that what's been a game changer for the Washington Post?
Yes, but as of late, we started reposting our TikToks to YouTube Shorts about 2 or 3 years ago, and it was more just like, let's just see what happens. And now our YouTube channel does even better than our TikTok channel. We just hit 1 billion views last week via Shorts. Yeah. Thank you. I think it's what's really cool about that is those are two different demographics. They're both younger audiences, but YouTube's far more male-centric. But clearly, something about the video still appeals to everyone of different demographics. So that's a really good sign that it's good storytelling if we're appealing to different people, including my parents who watch it on Reels.
Wow. Any other additions, Sabrina?
Well, I was just going to say, your videos have storytelling and the basics, but there are also a lot of craft in them still.
Thanks, yeah.
So I think you're doing storytelling at speed, but also maintaining the craft, which is not always the case, I feel like, on the internet. So
I really appreciate that. And that is, we do something sort of, I was talking about this yesterday to someone, it's meant to look effortless, but it takes a lot of time. Right. Like the whole point is that you want to be like, oh, I could do that, but actually it took a lot of time, a lot of thought, and a ton of editing to get from A to B to Z or whatever for any video.
Great.
I think from agency point of view, we just try to build up good story, and you just put so much time and effort to make a good one. But since there's so much going on in the world and there's so many different channels out there, there are some stories, even though they're really, really good, they just get wasted or discarded because you just don't get that enough level of attention. So I think, of course, the story itself has to be good. That's like basic stuff. But I think, like as you just said, TikTok, YouTube Shorts, so many different channels that you guys are considering. We just also have to consider the way how the story is delivered to the consumers as well, not just the story itself. I just wanted to point it out.
That brings me really nicely onto my next question, Sejin, which I want to kind of talk to you about, given that gold lion sitting there. The question is how can brands build an emotional connection in a short period of time?
Yeah, I think, of course, the speed does matter. It has to be fast, but I think it also has to be very meaningful and impactful to people out there and I myself to become emotionally attached. Well, what Hyundai Motor Company does all the time, or most of other brands do, is use their own media channels, like their own YouTube channels, to release the content. And since those channels have so many subscribers up there, it kind of guarantees the certain level of exposure. But I think it doesn't necessarily. Well, this doesn't necessarily translate into an emotional attachment. So, well, referring to our Grand Prix winning work right there. Well, we made a 13-minute short movie. Well, this is more of a speed part, but what we also had to consider was how this content was going to be delivered to people out there. Well, common ways, and what we did before was, of course, choosing Hyundai Motor Company's YouTube channel so that more people get to see it. But we become more strategic and we decided to go to theaters instead, even though that means there's like loss of some views. But we just wanted to make sure that this gets translated into a cinematic experience rather than this is another same old ad made by brand and an agency. So yeah, emotional connection, of course, speed, but also how it's getting conveyed to the people out there. Yeah.
I'd like to add something to that. When we think about making emotional connections with the stories that we create at the BBC, we've found time and time again, you have to center a person in the middle of the story. You have to communicate a universal truth that feels accessible to the audience. And when we place a human-focused story, they may be talking about a product or they may be related to a location that they're trying to promote from a partner that we work with. But when we tell it through the lens of their experience, that's where we see the connection between the audience and the most engagement. And it's emotions like happiness, surprise, thrill, curiosity. When you can peak those key sentiments, that's when we see real downstream results for the brand partners that we work with.
It's like you know what I'm about to ask you, because I'm going to move on to the next question, and you can maybe start with it, Farah, but I'd love to hear from everyone. You talked about values and results. So how do you guys communicate the value and the impact of creative storytelling to stakeholders within your business who, I guess, primarily are focused on bottom line results?
Yeah, it really does come back to those key emotional triggers. At the BBC, we've been studying storytelling for 100+ years. We started on radio. You don't have a radio face.
Oh, thank you.
And we have really sort of tapped into the art and science of storytelling. And what we've been able to prove is that moments that are connected to those key sentiments that I mentioned are directly related to brand outcomes from the top of funnel down to purchase intent. So we work with a different car brand. We work with Range Rover. And they came to us asking for a way to evoke the idea of journey and experience and a love and passion for design associated with the Range Rover Sport. And we could have pursued that by showing a dynamic, engaging video of all the features of the car, but instead, we sought out an incredible art curator and followed his journey through the world of art. And he spoke about how art is a journey through self-reflection. It brings you to places that you never could have imagined being before. And of course, we're following that art journey figuratively over the course of this film, but quite literally, he's traveling through his day in his Range Rover vehicle. And we end the film with this moment of arrival safely and excitingly with a Range Rover perched there as the denouement of the music is coming to a close. And what we saw with that film was an 81% increase in purchase intent.
Oh, wow. That's quite impressive. Anyone else want to add anything to that?
The question was about the emotional connection. Can you?
Is how you can define what success looks like to stakeholders within a business when you kind of approach creative storytelling.
Well, so I'm on the newsroom side of the Post, so luckily no one ever tells me too much about whatever's. I just get to make weird stuff in my corner. But as far as the success, like I see it in the comment section all the time, and I did get caught on the emotional connection part, but that's important to my measure of success, or if I know it's working or not. Even sort of during the peak pandemic, so much of the connection was, I'm also going crazy in my apartment, come along with the ride. And I think that's been that's not happening anymore, but there's still this like established connection that we have where even those early days of content created a bit of a parasocial relationship. And so I can see in the comments and people still talking about like how they remember a video from 4 years ago or last week, but either way, they want to be part of the journey and part of the connective tissue between them. Like, I'll give one last example, then I'll please do. But I bought this bulletin board last year, this giant bulletin board. It was a little bit bigger than I thought it was going to be. And I always joke about expensing things for videos. And it was only like maybe $40, I don't know. But the joke was, it was more than I thought it was going to be. My boss said I had to use it in the next 50 TikToks to make the expense worth it. Wow. And so by like the 30th TikTok, people are like commenting, oh, good, he used the board. He has to use it. And it got to a point where there would be a video, and you would just see some guy walking in the background with the bulletin board. It had nothing to do with what was happening. So it was just like, it has to be in the video. And I think that there's the individual stories, but also over time, keeping those like sort of Easter eggs throughout.
And the bulletin board becomes a character in itself.
Fully a character. Just like my can of Spam named Sam with his googly eyes.
Yeah, where is it? I thought you were bringing it.
I brought him to Cannes last time, and I was like, that was
props?
crazy. They could have taken him to TSA, so he's safely at home.
Fair.
That links really nicely to the next question. I'm going to ask Sabrina, given your past experience at HBO and Paramount,
Yep.
Is there a process for like truly listening to your audience and uncover insights that help you then create stories that will resonate with them and allow you to respond to them?
Yeah, there's two things I would say. So even though we're creating stories at speed, our audience is telling us what the hell they think at speed as well. So, we can really mine the reactions to things that we're trying and then bring those in. At Nickelodeon, we had the lovely opportunity to do a AR overlay on the Super Bowl. So live dual cast, which is like, the process is about preparing as best as you can to have the right cross-functional team in the right lanes, in the right, intersectionalities with one another, so that when you have, Tom Kenny in the booth and he says something, am I allowed to curse here? When he says something fucking hilarious and you're like, holy shit, we need to get him in his SpongeBob character and get that video out in as fast as possible, because you can see the audience being like, that is amazing. You have to do all the pre-work, and a lot of it, I think, is about setting up your high-performing team to know their guardrails and know where they can move and know how to work together across strategy and insights, creative and tech, to get that shit out the door as fast as possible.
Amazing. Someone in a SpongeBob outfit.
I think we all learned a lot from that Oreo you can still dunk in the dark, and how quickly they turned that around.
Do you know
from
it was
then on.
2012, I think.
Amazing.
We were just looking at that, and they're like, it seems like that's so long ago now, but yes, it's this preemptive.
But that was a moment, I think, where creative groups from across industries thought, how can we set ourselves up to be that fast and nimble?
Yeah, and that was because they had a war room set with the right people in the room and the client at the table with the agency to be able to make the decision to push go.
Sejin, did you?
Yes, I just wanted to say, like, putting in the right people is just so much important and powerful in some way, because, like, for big organizations, it just takes time and effort to get that approval. Like, even though we have, like, great ideas, but because of all the reports we have to make, because of the rationale that we have to build
Those
up,
damn CMOs.
I know, right? Well, sometimes, but having the right people, both inside and outside of the organization, it just gives the power of persuasion. We can just persuade those people saying that, look, we have the right talent right here, we have to move on, and just gives the power to move forward, bring it to the next level, and hopefully get that idea shown to the people out there. And it's just, yeah, it's just so important to have the right people in the team.
Great, thanks. My next question is quite personal to me. I'm like addicted to TikTok. It's a problem. So I'm addicted to TikTok because it basically shows me things it's pretty sure I'm interested in. So the question is when does real-time storytelling make a difference to audiences, especially in a world where algorithms on platforms show what they think is right rather than what they think is new? David, I'm going to put you on the spot, given what you do.
Well, I like to think of our account as the sort of voice of reason. Certainly, we have like a lot of really goofy jokes about bulletin boards and things, but it's very much reactive versus here's the breaking news. So what that means is anything can happen in the news, and a lot of creators, some journalists, mostly not journalists, have a lot of videos coming out about that thing. And so what I do is I scroll and I look for what they're getting wrong, and I don't necessarily call them out, but I take the time to make a video that is specifically addressing the things that most people are getting wrong. So that's a big part of the sort of like, kind of, I don't know, trying to keep up with what's happening in real time is not just, trying not to get too addicted to TikTok, but also sort of being a voice on the app where people are just going to see what they see. So hopefully we're the next video after that where they laugh too, but also it's kind of keeping them informed in an app that otherwise you might go down a rabbit hole really fast.
I think that's so nicely connected to what you said originally, which is this: everything you make is with such intention, and it fits into that feed where it looks easy and it's blended in with everyone who is using the TikTok to have their 1 minute of fame.
Right.
But placing your content side by side with that is so powerful because it really stands out with its quality.
Well, I really appreciate that. I mean, that's kind of been, like I said, TikTok has changed a lot, but that's been the consistent thing is that we are just, this voice of reason. And changed a lot in the fact, like, when we started, people thought my name was Washington and I was posting. They did not, it's been a long journey.
Wait, that's true?
Yes. Yeah, they would comment. They would be like, "Great post, Washington." Thank you. And then, they would, this is all true. They would be like,
but
so are you in
you're
Washington
embarrassing us that you're making the American name even worse here on
That's
this
fine.
stage.
I mean, if you think about it, TikTok, I'm always going to be doing that, whatever. But TikTok was like, especially at that time, 14, 15, 16-year-old girls, which is why it was so influential. That's like a time that like those are the most influential people in the world. And they didn't know about Bob Woodward. I made so many jokes about Watergate, and they're like, this was funny. I have no idea what you're talking about. And they thought, like, I'm in Seattle. You're nearby? Like, no, we're in the capital. We're not Washington State. So, yeah, it was a good education for them.
Any other points of view on that? And algorithms versus non-algorithms? I have a question which is kind of related to TikTok as a whole, and something I find really interesting. I wouldn't call myself an old man. I'm an older man. So I find it interesting to see how younger demographics behave. And one of the things I've noticed is that experiences are super important to them. So my question's kind of related to that. So if we move past like the novelty aspect of creating stories, there's something really important around interactive and immersive storytelling experiences. So I guess my question is given that's now a thing for a certain demographic, how can we as brands or newspapers find a way to really connect the brand and its products to those experiences? I'm looking at you, Sejin, so I'm going to see if you have a perspective.
I think giving a room, well, compared to past times, I think the interaction between consumers and the brand itself became so much more interactive. So it's not like being interactive and immersive. Immersive doesn't really mean being new. Well, it's part of it, but there's so much more. So I think it's very important nowadays for brands to provide consumers the room to actually connect dots between the content that has been, like coming back and forth, and also giving the room for them to actually interpret the content itself and give their own, letting them give their own messages onto the content itself. And I think that's how, brands. I think that's the way brands can make consumers to keep track of what brands are doing, and then also keep interested. It's not just about giving one like very sparse content out there. Go ahead and just like it. It's more about, well, we have this content. I hope you like it, and what do you guys think about it? Maybe we can get those feedbacks and work on it. And I wonder how you guys think. And it's just more of a cycle right there, more than a one-sided like injection of messages like brands provide. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like brands, when you think about the beginning of brand strategy, right? There's a lot of thinking about name and logo and color palette, and I think the behavior part of brand strategy and brand values. I mean, you look up and down. I think the expectation of consumers today and going forward is that your brand has a personality, it has behaviors, it fully comes to life, and we expect that everything you say in your mission statement, is true when I walk into the Pinterest house, and your brand actually comes to life for me. So all brands on some level need to be immersive storytellers these days.
It's just really amazing to see how people like trying to give meanings to brands' attempts. Like, it goes beyond creators' intentions sometimes. Like, oh, this creator did this because he or she wanted to get this message delivered in such way. It's all up to consumers to actually will come up with their own definition, and it's just amazing to see that. And look at all the comments and all that. It's just, even though we make a lot of content and we are very accustomed to the system and it's not something really new, it's just amazing to see, and it's all brand new to see how people react and how they see our content. It's just so much learning we get from there. Yeah.
When you talk about a brand persona, I think that is directly connected to the way we think about casting when we make brand films. You speak to a brand about the identity that they want to be associated with, and then when you are creating story for them, it's so important to find the personalities that are directly aligned with that feeling that they want to evoke. And then if you can focus the story on the person that evokes that spirit, it is so much more authentically aligned to what the brand is hoping their audience will perceive of them.
That's a great answer. Kind of building on that, we live in a world now where it's content always on. So can you outline any approaches for quickly identifying a compelling idea and creating content without sacrificing quality and brand values? And I'm going to ask Sabrina that because you mentioned brand personality just now. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I would build on what I said earlier, which is that's about, as a brand owner, it's about every member of the team living the brand, understanding the brand, the ethos of the brand. Who is the consumer? What is the profile? Are we in it, listening to it every single day? Because the insight can come from anyone who is touching and feeling the brand, particularly if your employees are consumers of the brand that you're working on. But then you need teams to be deployed, to have approval structures, to have everything they need to be able to move at the speed. Nothing kills speed and great creative more than bureaucracy. And so if you're in a brand and you're setting it up, set it up to clear the path, but make sure you're very clear about the guardrails.
I love to hear that. No, that's a real. I mean, I'm very lucky at the Post that I have basically one person ahead of me that approves everything, and then it gets posted. There's places where dozens of people are, and by the time you're posting it, whatever it was is irrelevant, or if it was based on a trend, that's out the door. And from the very beginning, we've had a really quick approving process, which at the Post is kind of by design because it's all based on existing reporting. So I'm kind of using stuff that's already been through an editor and then just putting my own weird spin on it. But that, I don't think without that quick approval process, we wouldn't have had nearly as much success because I would have just been sitting all day on my hands waiting to post something that isn't as relevant 48 hours later.
Yeah.
Amazing. We're, 25 minutes in, and we've not mentioned AI once. I'm about to change that, sadly. So it builds on what you've just spoken about. How are you using technology, not just AI, to transform your organization's ability to ideate, create, or distribute your stories more efficiently? I'm going to ask Farah.
Okay. So something that I've heard a lot here and is validating and exciting is that effective storytelling and effective advertising at that is a blend of craft and brain science. And that's something that we think about a lot in the way that we build films and written content and experiences for the partners that we work with. And so we use a tool that we call Science of Engagement. And it is an eye tracking technology where we can run brand films that we've created with our partners for various focus groups based on their key targets. And what it does is tracks the emotional engagements that they have over the course of watching a film. So happiness, thrill, curiosity, we can identify those key moments in the film where those sentiments are peaked. And from that, one, it teaches us, are we matching the desires that the brand had? And if not, how do we augment, change what we've created to ensure success? But it also allows us to be really predictive about the outcomes of the films that we create. So I mentioned purchase intent directly connected to some of those emotional sentiments. But the other thing that then you can use that for when we think about how expensive sometimes it can be to create good stories, you know this, is how do you help your partners stretch that budget? And so when you can identify the key moments in a film that spiked that emotion that's connected to an outcome, then you can isolate that moment and you can cut it down and you can use it for TikTok, or you can use it on YouTube Shorts, or you can use it in your pre-roll or a banner ad where you can have that direct click to whatever the action is, click to purchase even. And it makes for much more effective performance media. So, if you can follow the journey of what makes memory cognition work all the way downstream to that last step that the client is looking for, I think that that is an amazing evolution of how we blend art with real result.
Great. Important question. Does that use AI or does it not use AI?
It does not use AI, no.
I'm the face of AI at Havas Media Network, so I shouldn't be cheering. But yeah. Any other thoughts on that? I'm curious. I'm looking at you, David. So based on everything that Farah has just said, do you use the performance of the videos you create to then think about what you do moving forward? So maybe not predictive, but identifying nuance and things like that.
I definitely, yes. I mean, the short answer is yes, but the longer answer is what I have always loved about TikTok and Shorts, and I knew this because before I was doing it, I was making long-form videos, so I knew what it was like to spend weeks on something, and then it gets like 400 views on YouTube, and you're just like, cool.
Painful.
Yeah, but what's great about TikTok and YouTube is I can in shorts specifically, I can post something one day, and if it does well, great, and I'll learn from what people liked about that. If it doesn't do well, no one's gonna see it, or like, it's like it's memory hold. It's gone the next day. So it doesn't, as like a creator or whatever, I don't know why I put it in quotes, as a creator, I create. It's not as painful if something doesn't do as well. It's just what I tried that day didn't work. So that's what I really like about that is I'm 100% taking as much data as I can, and even like looking where the retention spiked or went away in any short even. And YouTube has really good demographics or everything on even shorts they have that. So we're constantly doing that, and what's even more important to me is sort of related. I do this thing where I check our homepage every so often, so just the thumbnails. And if they're starting to look the same, like I started to shoot some stuff in the same corner of my house or like in whatever, and they start to look a little bit whatever, I think that's a bad thing. And I start actively trying to put myself in different places. Even if it's the same type of story, I cover it in a different way because I don't want it to ever feel stale. So we're learning from things, but we're also trying to keep it as fresh as possible.
Amazing. Any additional thoughts from anyone? No? Just to build on that, I went and saw YouTube present yesterday, and they were talking about shorts and how that is a priority area for them. So YouTube has realized and spotted, I mean, obviously you've got Reels and TikTok, but for YouTube, they are seeing huge amounts of growth around shorts. And it sounds like what you're seeing, Dave, is something that shows to that.
Yeah, it's been, again, like 1 billion views is crazy. I sound like Justin Timberlake. What about 1 billion? But I started my own personal channel through the post earlier this year, and it's all long-form YouTube videos. And we clip from that, and we post those shorts on the main Washington Post channel, and it also drives traffic to this channel.
Right.
And it's also a great, speaking of like checking what worked, if I post what I think is the best clip of that video and it does well on shorts, that's a really good sign that just getting that piece of the video to see what worked there. So it's driving traffic, and it's a great sort of one-off of what worked and what didn't work in this video. Not unlike what you were saying.
Yeah.
Amazing. I think we'll call it a morning after that. I feel exhausted, and I haven't done much talking. So thank you very much. Can we have a round of applause for our panelists, please? I'm going to mention the lion again because we're going to show night fishing now. So if you want to see what a lion looks like, it's going to be appearing on that screen very shortly. Thank you very much for all of your time, and enjoy the rest of your can. Thank you.
Thank you.